Hey, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. It's summertime. It's 107 degrees today. We're out here fishing on Clear Lake. We decided to tuck into the tules, get a little shade, take a break. I wanted to talk to you guys today about soft-bodied frogs. This time of year, we spend a lot of time throwing regular hollow frog and a buzzbait around the grass, around the tules. When you're throwing a buzzbait in those circumstances, it can get really frustrating. The blades are always getting wrapped up in that grass. Sometimes you're spending more time cleaning grass off than you actually are fishing the bait. When that happens, that's when we start turning to these soft-bodied frogs. You can get a lot of the same actions, a lot of the same movement, get those same bites, but you're dealing with a weedless bait. You don't deal with all those hassles that you get from a traditional buzzbait. So jumping into these baits a little bit, like everything, there are a ton of options out there. Some of the common ones that we're using, rage toad, rage shad, the horny toad, you got the ribbit, the bull ribbit, the seismic toad. You got a lot of different options. They're all very similar baits, but there are some subtleties that are important to understand. When you understand the basic differences in the baits, it becomes very clear when you need to use each one. Of course, color comes into play, but that really is a personal preference. Just like a traditional frog, I use a black base, chartreuse base, and a white base. If you like other colors, that's all right. But the other factors that I want to talk to you about, there's two of them. What those are going to be is sound and the speed that you can retrieve the bait, because those are very critical things. Each bait has a unique sound. No two soft-bodied frogs sound exactly the same. Some are going to be a lot louder than others, some are going to be much more subtle, and that will directly play into the speed at which you can retrieve those baits. So just as a general rule, the baits that have the largest feet, the thickest feet, those are the baits that are going to make the most aggressive, the loudest sound. They're also the baits that you have to retrieve at the fastest speed to get that sound out of them. Whereas something more like a horny toad with a very thin profile leg, you can go quite a bit slower and still get that leg to move because you're not trying to move so much material. You're also going to have a much quieter sound with that bait. So there's no solid rule of thumb per se on when to throw which one, but it's something that you want to understand, that sound is going to play a critical role, as is speed. Because depending on the mood of the bass on a given day, some days they're willing to just charge out of that grass, run a bait down, go in full speed and just inhale it. Other days, your bait will be 4 feet past the grass and you'll see that little boil come up to the surface because they weren't willing to run after it. They took a look and just turned back. It was going too fast. That's where you're going to drop down to something like a horny toad, where you're going a lot slower, staying over their head longer. They have time to come up and get it without really chasing after it. If you can understand those concepts and apply that to your fishing, these baits will become much more consistent over a variety of circumstances on different days, whether it's changing temperatures, whether there's some current or some wind. You can adapt the specific bait that you're throwing and still get them to eat this style of bait. Rigging is very simple. The hook that I use personally is the Owner Twist Lock. The model number is a long number, but it's the Owner Twist Lock. I use the 4/0, 5/0, and 6/0, and it depends on the particular bait. I'll show you how I rig those. Just very, very simple. That twist lock, it's got a screw lock on the top. So what I'll do, this is the 6/0. That's the one that I'll use on the, I'll use that on the rage toad. I use that on the bull ribbit, and I'll also use that on the rage shad. But we'll take a rage toad. You take that screw lock and you're just going to twist it right into the nose of the bait. What that does is that holds that bait in place and they last a lot longer than if you're putting them on a traditional hook. And then you just take your hook, stab it through the bait and out the back so that it's exposed, and then I'll push it back down flat, and then I just barely skin hook the tip of that hook so that it's still weedless when it's running through the grass. When it's done right, that bait is hanging perfectly vertically on that hook. So when a fish comes up and eats it, when they impact that bait and hit that hook, it pops it right out, and you can hook them very easily. So that's the way I prefer to rig them. Different people use different hooks. That's the best one I've found for me. Rods are extremely similar to what we're throwing for the hollow body frogs. In cover, I like that 7.3 6 power, really stout rod, because this 6/0 hook is a stout hook. You can put a lot of pressure on the fish to get them out of that grass. But in the open water or around that sparse grass, I'll go down to a 7.6 4 power, like a medium heavy, because you just don't need that horsepower to get them out. They can eat the bait a little better, and then you just load them up. So that's a nice feature there. You don't need as stout of a rod. We still throw them on braid, generally 50-pound braid in the open, 65 in that heavy cover, just so you can haul those fish out. But with this style of bait, the baits are moving so quickly through the water, the fish aren't going to see that braid. You don't need to worry about line visibility scaring the fish. So hopefully this gives you some great information, something that you can apply to these baits. It's more than just picking a favorite brand and picking a favorite color. You know, there really are some subtle differences between the baits. It's smart to have 2 or 3 in the boat, and as the conditions are changing, the clouds come in, the wind comes up, you change the bait that you're using and you can keep catching those fish. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Right here, ate that Alabama rig that we're talking about, that JSJ rig. That fish is 13.0, right on the money. She ate those Kitech swim baits. This fish is monstrous. I'm too excited. You guys need to start throwing these.